Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government will try to fast-track a liquid natural gas facility as part of his major projects announcement. And that is among 5 proposals on the list revealed yesterday. We look at the national picture and scope of all of these. Environmental and Indigenous groups have been sounding the alarm over the Liberal plan, saying what the country needs is clean energy, not fossil fuel expansion. So we'll get into some of the objections, but again, looking at the map that we've blown up for you and the locations for the first 5 of these national projects announced yesterday by the Prime Minister. And Janice, again, let's look at the 5 as announced. And obviously, we've been talking about the omission from that, which some people question, the no pipeline inclusion.
That's right. And something about the politics of this is really feeling new and different this fall. When you see Alberta Premier Danielle Smith relaxed and smiling with a Liberal Prime Minister, that has not been the case historically. This relationship has changed, and that's exactly what makes climate activists in particular so nervous, because this Premier has been loud and clear about her support for the oil and gas industry, about her intention to use whatever means necessary at her disposal, encourage to get another oil pipeline built to help her province's economy. Sure, there is not one on this first short list of 5 things that you were showing there, because we heard this week no company has yet put a serious proposal on the table. There are issues with, frankly, the price of oil right now and the investment climate that may be standing in the way. And yes, Danielle Smith has identified what she calls bad bills, federal legislation that she believes discourages that kind of investment. But listen to how she was explaining her optimism yesterday in terms of how the process of getting a new pipeline really works.
Companies won't pledge barrels if they're facing emissions caps, tanker bans, net zero power regulations, greenwashing bill that might put them in jail for talking about their emissions success. So there is a bit of a chicken and egg problem. As I am confident that if we address those underlying conditions to improve the investment climate, that a private sector proponent will have no problem lining up producers.
So here's the thing about that legislation that passed Parliament back in June. C5 provides for perhaps a skirting of some of these bad bills if a project is deemed of sufficient national importance. That opens an important door. It gets around this barrier that Smith was identifying. If you can prove that your results will matter, then you may warrant an exception. The Prime Minister now appears to be willing to embrace Alberta's suggestion that if carbon capture and storage projects, which are on kind of the second tranche of projects, that kind of second list that we heard about yesterday, if decarbonization, as the industry refers to it, can yield equivalent or a better progress towards lowering carbon emissions and making Canada's industry sustainable, then, for example, the cap that the federal government was otherwise going to impose on emissions from oil and gas later this fall, the industry should be able, they argue, to proceed with their projects. Listen to what the Prime Minister was saying yesterday about this kind of deal.
I drew on the observation of the characterization of the Premier back in Saskatoon in June that there is a grand bargain which pairs pathways, a major decarbonization project, with a new pipeline. What's happening here today is we are saying that we are going to accelerate work on pathways. We see this as a potentially viable project. The Major Project Office will continue to do the work. That creates the opportunity for the plus. The plus is potential pipeline to a variety of potential markets.
Climate activists are very skeptical about the idea of decarbonization. They don't think it's going to work as well as the industry says. They don't want any more government focus or taxpayer money going to fossil fuels, period. But Carney told reporters that what matters to him in these challenging economic times are results, not objectives. So we watch now to see whether the objectives as stated by the previous Trudeau government when it comes to emissions targets in 2030, 2035, or caps for the industry going forward, if those objectives are about to be revised as part of this new strategy.
The other thing we'll watch is, of course, what the opposition parties think of that. Parliament is set to return next week. What have they said so far?
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre very skeptical yesterday. Listen to what he said.
What we have today is Mark Carney, after 6 months, has not approved a single national project anywhere in Canada. It's really incredible. He was elected saying that we are in an unprecedented crisis and that we needed to move with unimaginable speed. So what has he done? He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else.
Conservatives' point is that if you have legislation that is harming investment, regulations standing in the way, just get rid of them. You don't need a special project to exempt certain things that you put on a certain list. So they're not buying into this entire scheme. I'll just note quickly, the NDP yesterday were open to some of the things that were put on the list, some of the green energy projects, saying they like that. They'd put support Canadian workers, getting jobs to build those things, but they remain concerned about process that might be violating Indigenous rights to proper consent for things happening on their territory. So some friction's still there.
Thank you, Janice. More on that to come. Janice McGregor covering things in Ottawa.